So Patrick taught me about pattern interrupts about a year ago, and in the podcasting space and in marketing, I think pattern interrupts are just as important as they are in sales, right? So I've got one more pattern interrupt for you.
Look at that. I've learned something about you today.
That's my pattern interrupt.
Do we get a janitor?
That's me. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Customer Engagement Lab. I'm your host, Travis T-Dog Tyler. I am here today with Patrick, Big Daddy Downs, as always. My beautiful... Dude, you're a ray of sunshine in my life, co-host.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was the nicest thing someone said to me in the last hour. People say nice things to me a lot. It's not like against you or anything. It wasn't all day.
You genuinely make my life better, so thank you.
Oh, I'd say the same thing to you, man.
Thank you. So this episode, we're actually gonna be interviewing Troy Barter from PandaDoc. It's going to be beautifully, wonderfully intense. But before we get into that, I want to talk today about pattern interrupts.
Okay.
I've got a pattern interrupt right now. At least I think it's one.
Okay. We're going to do this.
If you're not familiar, there is a LaCroix sitting on the desk that I just brought out for me and Patrick. It's a TikTok trend where people try to chug them. So you guys get to watch us try to chug these LaCroix.
Okay. Into the mic.
Into the mic.
All right. Let's go.
Go. Oh, yeah, I can't do it. How can you do that? How are you doing that? My eyes are crying.
I got like 3/4 of it. Ugh.
Hope you guys are enjoying this.
I'm Irish.
Anything for the show? I'm not enjoying this, but I hope everybody else is. I'm not even going to finish it. You're a savage.
One time, I was on a boat. And let's just say that I wasn't in a normal headspace.
Uh-huh.
And somebody tried to get me to chug a White Claw. And 90% of it ended up on my shirt. And then I fell asleep. So if I can do that, that's no problem.
I'm really proud of you.
Thanks, man.
Patrick taught me about pattern interrupts about a year ago. And in the podcasting space and in marketing, I think pattern interrupts are just as important as they are in sales, right? Mm. So I want you to explain to everybody what a pattern interrupt is in sales.
Well, just in general, your brain doesn't process everything. Like, it's trying to just focus on like the burps, the most essential things that are in front of you, right? For example, you can always see your nose, but your brain is not processing your nose visually because it's not useful information. Same thing with like colors. We see certain colors more like green because we're technically predators. So your brain processes patterns pretty much. So when somebody does something that's outside of the pattern, like if suddenly your nose grew 2 inches, you would start seeing your nose again because it's suddenly bigger. And your brain's like, oh, that's new visual information. So in sales, every salesperson is doing like the same thing. Hi, this is Patrick calling from PandaDoc. How are you? Did I catch you at a bad time? And your brain recognizes that as a sales pattern because you've gotten hundreds of cold calls, if not thousands in your life, throws it away. You don't even register it. Like you don't hear them. It's just click. That's why you get hung up on a lot of the times. So to get past that first like 20 seconds, you need to do something that nobody else does, which is what a pattern interrupt is.
So I am going to, I love that description, by the way. I'm going to pull up a clip. Okay. She talks about the movie Passenger. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with that movie. But I'll go ahead and just start it right about here.
Something that will make the computer twitch. So what I mean by that, if you've seen the movie Passengers, just comment below. It's one of my favorite movies. I get made fun of for it, by the way. I watch it so much. But in the movie The Passengers, there's a part where the guy, who's the only person that's awake on the aircraft, so he goes up to the bartender and he asks him a question that the bartender or the robot cannot compute because it's not a direct yes or no question. It requires some let's say it's some illogical or some out of the box thinking, and a computer can't do that. A computer is very straightforward: 1 2 3 4 5, 2 + 2 = 4. So when the guy asked the robot this question, the robot literally did this. And that's a computer twitching. So that's what I want you to think of in terms of the pattern interrupt. That's what I want.
Okay. So I like examples. And sure. I think for people who know a lot about pattern interruptions or who don't know anything about them, I wanted to ask you, what are some of your favorite ones that you've seen yourself, like used on you, that you like to use, or that you've seen people here at PandaDoc use?
It's interesting because I think we're in a bubble
Mm-hmm.
in SaaS tech, in sales culture. I think we believe that everybody knows all this stuff, but every single cold call I've ever gotten is exactly the same. Like, you think that people would read the advice and be like, let me try that. But, it doesn't seem to be happening. Or maybe they did and it didn't work, so they never tried it again. Almost every cold call I get is just, hey, this is John from X. How are you doing? I don't believe I've ever had a pattern interrupt used on me. So that's just to say you should use them because I'm sure like at least 99% of the time the people you're calling are not used to hearing it, which is why it makes it so effective.
What are some ones that you like to use that you've used either in more of an SDR roles that you started out in? Because that's where it's more relevant, right? Like as an AE or somebody that's like closing, a pattern interrupt may not be as relevant, right? Because you're not trying to interrupt their normal pattern to grab their attention in original cold outreach.
I get why you would say that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd say there are other portions of the sales cycle where you want to use it, specifically around pricing.
Okay.
A pattern interrupt I'd use in AE was I would give them the pricing as the first thing that we talked about.
Mm.
Every single other AE I've ever talked to was like, you got to build the value first, you got to show them the demo, pitch them, and then at the end you show them the pricing.
Yeah.
So I was like, what if I just showed them the pricing immediately? So I'd be like, hey, John, so the price is going to be between this and this. What are your thoughts on that? Half the time people would be like, wow, I'm shocked that you did that. They're like, that's kind of refreshing. Or they would be confused. Like, why did you just show me the pricing? And what happened there was they just started talking about it and going, oh, well, I'm used to doing this. And they would give me more information than if I did it at the end because they felt like I just dragged them through this whole thing to something out of their budget. And now they feel uncomfortable. But when you do it up front, it breaks the pattern of the sales process.
I feel like that reminds me of the episode where we interviewed Bilal, and he told us there are like 4 or 5 things that he's kind of narrowed down to of how to like, he called it like, I don't know if he said like surprise, like
it's like delight your customer.
Yeah, delightfully surprising your customer. And pricing was one of them. Just like right out of the gate being super transparent with it, because that's like what some people, and then the other one was competitors, like being able to comfortably talk about competitors and bring them up yourself. And I was like, yo, that's a good one too.
He does another one where he'll be like, hey, here's the stuff we're not good for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which I really like that. And I tried it up front. I'd be like, hey, we're not good for RFPs and like complex CPQ processes and things like that.
Yeah.
And then people are like, oh, I don't really need those things anyway. So now they're like, well, now I know what you're not good for, but I actually need this. Like, oh, yeah, we do work for that.
That honesty is very disarming for people that have their, their guard up. Like we've talked about, like, I think about the guys at the mall. I was buying a Tampa Bay Lightning hat because we're in the playoffs. If anybody likes hockey. And like these guys at the kiosks are just like hounding me. And that's how I sum that. Like that's like a real life sales situation. And
Get hounded.
And what's funny is like the kiosk where there was nobody standing, I think the guy was standing 100 feet away from it, was the one where I bought you Squiddy. Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about, I bought Patrick a little squid that was popular on like TikTok that shows your mood. You flip it out for happy squid, and then you flip it the other way, and it's bad mood squid to show those around you what kind of mood you're in. And it's just like a funny little gag. And that dude
bring
was
it with me everywhere, just so people understand not to talk to me.
And so anyway, yeah, I think about these real life situations where like my guard is immediately up when I sense somebody is selling me something. like and hounding me. Whereas if somebody's very disarming, that is a pattern interrupt from me. Because I'm like, I sense the genuineness and the authenticity and the honesty. That's interrupting a pattern of lying and stealing that I'm used to in my life. So,
and then in cold outreach, kind of similar to that, the most common thing you'll hear is people like, "Is this a sales call?" And the person be like, "No, it's not a sales call yet." Like when people say that, it makes me steam. I'm not trying to sell you anything. You are a sales development representative. It's in your title.
Yeah,
like
that's like a popular one that I've heard our SDRs use is, "This is a sales call. Do you want to give me 15 seconds, or do you want to just hang up now?"
Yep.
This is a very disarming tactic. I'm going to pivot a little bit if that's cool.
All right.
I'm going to talk about our boy Jed.
Oh, wow.
Jed,
if I could talk about Jed every day, I would. What's up, Jeddy?
For those of you who don't know who Jed is, go check out Practical Prospecting by Jed Marl. Just type that in on Google. You'll find it. He's got a really good newsletter that he puts out, not super consistently, which I'll talk with him about. But the content in there is golden. He's like lifting the whole hood on everything he does. And that's like the most important thing in marketing for anything is like, it's all about the content. The content sucks. It doesn't matter how flashy your shit is. So anyway, Jed.
Do you want to defend Jed? He moved to management recently. So he's not prospecting as much. And the newsletter is about stuff that he does. And if he's not doing it every day, he's going to have less content. I'm just saying.
Isn't this the world of sales that we live in?
You just have to start recycling stuff.
No. Well, yeah. But I was going to say like the people that are really good at their jobs end up getting into management, and then the stuff that they like are really good at kind of fades away. Like anyway, we're going off topic, but yeah.
I think it might be an interesting thing to talk about. Like, is there room for more like actual selling in leadership roles?
Yeah.
I think there could be.
Like yours.
Yeah.
You're selling, right?
Not as much as I should.
Okay.
Honestly. Like I thought I had this whole idea. It's like, oh, when I get into the role, like I'm still going to be selling and all that. But then I'm in back-to-back meetings all day. So I'm like, how the hell am I going to sell?
In your sleep, like we talked about last episode, dude. You're hanging upside down in a bat in a bat cave.
Yes. I'm going to start sleep selling.
That's
a pattern interrupt in itself.
That's the fourth wave of sales. We're going to talk about the third wave here in just a minute. Anyway, Practical Prospecting by Jed Marl. In a recent article, he talks about a strategy he learned from Jason Bay is using one word, plain, even boring subject lines as a pattern interrupt. He writes, think about it. Every SDR on the planet is trying to get your prospect's attention. So why not try the opposite? You might just stand out. Some personal examples include subject lines just like proposals, literally just the word proposals, docs, e-cigs, or even just the company name, PandaDoc. He goes on to use some more. I like this example further down a little bit. Jed, let's see, he wrote 26 reps. He opened his LinkedIn and read his prospect's role description. And the role description, the guy wrote, I scaled my team from 0 to 26 reps. And so Jed just literally used that in the subject line and just wrote his name. Let's say John, 0 to 26 reps. And he even shows the full email. But this just like really, I've started to use this pattern interrupt technique of like one word subject lines in communicating with coworkers, in communicating with partners at other companies. And like the response rate is pretty good.
Yes. I had this weird situation recently where I ran into a prospect of one of my reps who she talks in like 3-word emails. And Matt was the rep and he told me like, hey, can you write this email for me? And then I wrote out this like 5-paragraph thing that I would usually send. He was like, no. Like she communicates in 3 words max. So I then had to take that email and be like, how do I turn this into 1 sentence? Which was the hardest thing I've ever done. So like my biggest tip is that most people you're talking to, unless they're in marketing, are probably going to communicate in very short blurbs. And you probably want to mirror that as much as you can.
Do it in marketing too.
A lot of marketers
I
use
got
like
an
superfluous
email.
language, I feel like.
God. I got an email from a partner. I won't say what company. And I'm like, I'm not reading this email. And it was somebody directly communicating to me, Travis. And they CC'd a lot of important people at our company.
Yeah.
Which they shouldn't have done.
It happens.
And the email was like a novel.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it. Aim to write no more than 3 sentences in any email. If it needs to be more than 3 sentences, pick up the phone and talk to the
I
person.
feel like Will Allred's ears are ringing.
Shout out to Will Allred. He got
Yeah.
married recently.
Woo, Will.
Love you,
Good
Will.
job, man. You did it.
Go check out Lavender. We're going to talk about Lavender a little bit later in the show
Oh.
with Troy, and a different company is what I kind of want to talk about in just a little bit. But Pattern Interrupts and the example from the Passenger movie, right? We're talking about artificial intelligence in sales. And I just ordered my copy of Justin Michael's book, Tech Powered Sales. Shout out to Justin Michael.
Ooh, Justin.
Go grab a copy of his book. If you like this show, you like diving deeper into the state of technology in sales and kind of like the futurism of sales, I just want to give a quick shout out to Justin Michael. If you're listening to this, go check him out on LinkedIn. I'm fascinated by this man.
Yeah, me too.
Half the time, what he writes and what he says, I have no clue what he's talking about. And I put this in a post where I responded but I feel like that Jack Nicholson gif of just like nodding my head like a crazy person. I'm like, yes.
Well, he
keep
talks in
talking,
code.
Justin. Keep talking. I love this. Nobody talks like Justin.
Yes, I feel that. I like that Jack Nicholson, by the way. But I feel like you have to read what he says twice. Like, it does make sense, but he's using like language and code almost, and you need to decipher it. And then you're like, oh, I get it. It's all metaphor and allegory and all kinds of stuff. Or he's referring to stuff I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of references.
Yes.
But it's good stuff.
I love it. Nobody talks. It's like a William Faulkner novel in sales. You're like,
As I lay sewing.
you just wrote, 40 pages to encapsulate like a 30-second moment.
He's like, I'm going to write a book from the perspective of a keyboard.
Which goes against everything we just said of like, if it's not 3 sentences, make it a call. But if you're Justin Michael, it's different. And he would write it in less than 3 sentences. But I saw a tool recently. So Will from Lavender, who just got married that we gave a shout out to, made a post where it was a Medium article talking about the third wave of sales. And Medium article highlighted Lavender and another company that I thought was really cool. And I wanted to show it to you and see if this is something that you would be interested in as a sales manager, or if it's too big brother, or if it's irrelevant. So it's called Buyer Site. I'll show you this. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I haven't.
And basically, you're able to, as a sales manager, let me see if I can get a visual here. Go to the product page. AI-driven insight and recommendations about your reps. So you can like really get in depth on everything that it is that they're doing and categorize like their workday. This is it. This is the one I wanted to show you. So like how many touch points, what was the average response time? How many days between, average time between the follow-up? How much of your
prospecting?
What percentage of your time was
I
spent
want
prospecting, responding to emails? What was your average email length and the average email readability? And is this too much? But like, I mean, how would...
It's funny. We could ask that question, but I've worked at companies where like they literally track every tab in my browser,
Yeah.
and how much time I spent on each one, and then use it as a board to show the entire company what I'm doing. And then like this is way less intense than that because it's just focused on like sales metrics and like how efficient you're being. It's not like tracking your every move and telling everybody what exactly you're doing.
Yeah.
It's just saying like, here's how good you're doing based on these metrics, which
Yeah.
I think is just more helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It's less about control and more about like, okay, like if you're having a down month, I can look at these metrics and say, if you lift this, your numbers will go up.
Yeah.
And then we can coach around that specific metric, which I would find helpful.
It's almost like a good analogy that I can think of is like if you're, an NFL quarterback, and then I don't know if you've ever seen like they show these graphics sometimes on like, game day in between plays or whatever, and it shows like the percentage completion rate for like different parts of the field from the quarterback's point of view. Like he has a 48% completion rate when he throws to his left, He has a 30% completion rate trying to throw up the middle against this specific team, and so it'll kind of show you like, where is he struggling? Where is he succeeding? And then you can make some inferences off of that to improve your game.
Exactly. Like I wouldn't think a baseball player would ever be like, well, it's kind of invasive that you have my batting average.
Yeah.
Like that's just the same equivalent to me.
We're going to be talking with Troy in just a little bit here, but you want to leave the people with anything? Patrick, today we talked about a lot of cool shit like technology and sales, pattern interrupts, AI. What's a good takeaway?
Good takeaway. Embrace the machine. I think there's a lot of anxiety in general. People have watched iRobot a couple too many times, or Blade Runner or something. Good movie. But the concern is unvalid, I think. Like I think the world of sales is going to be much brighter 10 years from now than it even is today. I think the job is going to be easier, more fun, and it's going to make us focus more on just like talking to people. Like if my entire job could just be on the phone with customers all day, like that's what I want. And I think that's what tech is getting us towards.
Beautiful. Well, I've got one more pattern interrupt for you.
Look at that. I've learned something about you today.
That's my pattern interrupt.
Do we get a janitor?
That's me. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you, everybody.
Adios. Yo, what up, everybody?
Oh,
I am here with Patrick Downs and Troy Barter. Troy is the director of sales here at PandaDoc. We're super excited to have him on the show. Troy, welcome to the Customer Engagement Lab. This is long overdue, man.
it is. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm happy to be here and chop it up with the boys.
My man. Well, let's jump right into it. I've got a couple of things that last week when I was preparing for this episode, I was like, you know what? I want to show this to Troy. I want to see if he either laughs like I think Patrick and I will, and like what his take on it is, just because I feel like Troy either is very opinionated or has zero opinion. There's like no middle ground. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen here.
Who are you? Bagel Bites? All these big companies are so scared of all this social change, and I come in and I put their fears to rest. I tell them, just be honest. Tell your customers that JP Morgan is against racism in theory. The question is no longer, do you want to buy wheat thins, for example? The question is now, will you support wheat thins in the fight against Lyme disease? There's no Consumers want to know, are you willing to use your brand awareness to affect positive social change, which will create more brand awareness? The question I ask the brands I work with is, are you going to be...
Okay, I just wanted to do the is good.
Why does every marketing person do that?
I don't know. Yeah, so Troy, you got to watch this over the weekend with your wife. Patrick and Troy, what do you guys make of this? Is this like way too accurate?
Yeah. Patrick, you first so I can get a baseline of things. So
Yeah. My favorite part is the against racism in theory. I think we even had a conversation about this, like the idea of performative wokeness a couple of weeks ago, which is exactly what this is about.
Yeah.
And it's funny that we look at this, it's just brands trying to make money off of social change, where it happens all the time. And it's hard to even like fault the brands, because marketing's job is to do stuff that works. And this stuff works for whatever reason on most people. On some people, it doesn't. It does the opposite. But I think there's enough of a group that will be like, okay, like I identify with this and it makes me want to associate with your brand more, that it's worth it for them. But also the is thing is weirdly accurate. Every person I've talked to in brand or marketing stumbles on that word for some reason. Is it intentional, Travis?
Is it intentional, Patrick? I don't know.
Is it because a lot of people in that field start talking before they've fully formulated a thought, and then they have to stop mid-thought?
I thought they just had so many like genius things flowing through their mind at the same time that they had to process it and slow down a bit and make sure that they they pick the right perfect gem to pop out and gift to the world. Maybe it's that.
Personally attacked. Gonna go ahead and ask everybody to dial back the marketing hate. No, I'm just kidding. Please pile it on heavier. Yeah, I mean,
There's sales for people that can't close. Everyone knows that one. Come on, that's it.
Yeah. What's your take on it, Troy? Like, I laughed just because I was like, this is 100% accurate.
I mean, I'm 37, so I came from like, I remember marketing was like, ads were like avant-garde and everything was different. Someone would come up with like a fresh take and it'd be like, oh, okay, that's why I want to buy those Bo Jackson sneakers, is because of that, you know, or like, oh shit, like that's a really cool video game. They did something I hadn't seen before. Like, and now it's like, well, here's how we're going to separate ourselves from everybody else. We're going to do the exact same thing that literally every single corporation is, because they have to, not because they want to. They don't care more today than they did 5 years ago. Nothing's changed. It's just, all right, we have to play the game also. Like, and to me, it's like, you're not, all right, fair enough. You have to now. So I wouldn't say not to. It's the rules. You absolutely have to do it. You know, really want to play a fun game. Just look at everybody that's a VP or above at the company on LinkedIn and peep what color they are and gender. And oh shit, oh wait, you really don't that much, do you? Because it's all pretty much the same. The demographics actually are skewed more in the direction of it not being representative of even the country. It's not pushing any kind of level of diversity. It's only pushing it at the surface level from a marketing perspective, or in their entry level employees. It's not pushing it where their job is. That's just a fact. I mean, most places.
Yeah, I think that's why this hits so hard. Like with the Bo Burnham, you know, it's satirical, but it's poking fun at a real issue. And here we are, 3 white guys talking about it. The next one I want to show you guys is going in a little bit of a different direction. Since you both are, you know, managers, directors, overseeing teams, I saw a post on LinkedIn from Marcus A. Chan. So, all right, cool. So for those that are listening, it basically says Marcus is playing out a dialogue between a rep and himself. So it goes, Marcus, can you help me hit and exceed my quota? Me, yep, do this. I'm not sure if that'll work. Okay, try this. I'm not sure if I'll have time. What about this? That seems like it'll take a long time. Invest in this. I don't know if I'll get a return on it. Me, try this instead. That sounds too hard. Me, okay, how about this? That sounds too simple to work. So what do you want to do? I'm going to try harder. So you're going to keep doing what you've been doing and you expect to get different results. I guess so. Moral of the story, you can't help those who are unwilling to be helped. Do you agree?
So my approach to leadership, I think, is a little bit different. I agree, number one, but I like, you know, they say like, just because you can sell doesn't mean that you're going to be a good leader. Well, no, it's fairly indicative, actually, if you realize that once you become a leader, you actually don't stop selling. You're just also selling your team too. So like, if you were to take that same post and then make the leader a salesperson and make the rep that's asking for help the prospect, the prospect wouldn't have bought whatever the fuck they were selling, right? Like, okay, buy this. I don't know if that's the right plan for me. Okay, buy this one then. All right, well, you haven't sold them on it. Where's the why? Have you told them how? You just said do. Like, which, and I get like, that's probably paraphrased, and I probably actually agree. And it's probably like, no, I actually did all that. I just didn't have time to put it into a LinkedIn post. But like, the context is like, I think a lot of leaders don't go over the why first. Oh, I have to actually have them sold on it. I've got to see it in their eyes that they're like, well, I'm actually bought into this. I want to do it now. I see the reasons why it makes sense to do, and now I want to do it. And then go over how to do it, show them how to do it, check up on them, make sure that they can do it. Like, there's more to it than, well, this person doesn't want to be helped, you know. And but I do agree, and I would guess that that's probably like they probably are doing those things, you know. But I think a lot of folks aren't, and they're like, well, this person just didn't want to be helped. It's like, okay, so like you're less accountable than your team then, because you're just blaming them. What could you have done differently? Did you sell them on it? Like if that's the right way of doing it, then it shouldn't be a fresh take. You should have already had your whole team bought into it. You should be pointing to the social proof of the people that are already doing it and having success. Like that should have been the culture that you built. I think a lot of times, like people, especially if they're like real entrepreneurial, they don't have time. They have other shit to do, so they don't have time to like slow down and sell the person on it. But that's the difference in a team that's all rowing in the same direction and bought in and ready to run through a wall over it. And those that like some people do it and some people like they veer off the paved road and say, well, I'm just going to go through the woods instead. I think this way might work. Yeah, that's my take, Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick, what do you think? I wanted to respond after.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually at a direct training only role for a long time, so I relate to this. At first, I was frustrated because I think I went in with a lot of people already knew me, and people just listened to me because they'd seen my performance, and they're like, "Oh, you did this, you popped off, so like I'm gonna listen to what you have to say." But then people started coming in that didn't know what I did, and then they weren't listening to me. And I was like, you guys are idiots, right? Stupid idiots. But then I slowed down. And I was like, okay, like, why did those original people listen to me in the first place? Oh, they thought it would work because they saw that I'd done similar things and popped off. So now I need to replicate that feeling with the new people. It was like, why am I even telling you this? Well, like, look at Luke's performance. Like, let me actually screenshot Luke's rise from March, like 2018 to now, where he's increased by 400%, and the actions that we did with him to take him there and get him to speak in front of them and talk to them about it. Kind of what Troy was talking about, social proof. And even be willing to have a conversation about why your thing doesn't work. Like if you're a salesperson, sometimes you need to be honest with people and like be very transparent about stuff. And a lot of people just stop at their frustration and go, just do it, instead of even just having a conversation about it, which can help.
You know, I was in a situation similar to yours, Patrick, where not in sales, but in marketing, where this was at my last job where I had two people reporting to me, and they were frustrated that they weren't getting the recognition for their work. They were frustrated that they weren't like up-leveling their titles. And I tried to explain to them like, well, you know, you got to manage up a little bit. Like you got to manage me, and you got to, I don't know, like, here's what I've done to be successful, but I totally failed to sell them on it. And in doing so, they just got frustrated and left. And I just didn't sell them on how I was able to achieve success in marketing and how they could replicate it. And yeah.
When reps are trying to like move up, like I always go over like, this is how to move up. Just 3 things. Super simple. I've been saying this for like almost a decade now. You have to be high value, which means you're at the top of the board or close to it. Like you're not leaving it in the judges' scorecards in terms of performance. You're blatantly high value, both in performance and also you're doing things to assist other reps. You're looking to replicate yourself. So if you did get promoted, you've already duplicated yourself a time or two through the wisdom and the extra work that you put in. And then low maintenance. So high value, low maintenance. Low maintenance doesn't mean like you never come to someone with your problems, but like maybe have a suggested solution when you come. Like you're not complaining, you're looking to solve the problem instead. You're because no one wants to manage a manager that's high maintenance. Or the higher up you go, the more that you're high maintenance, the more of a headache it becomes, the more bandwidth suck that it is. And then the third one is demand an opportunity. Not ask, demand the opportunity. Meaning if they don't have it where you're at, then look for it. But you can't do the third one until you've already done the first 2.
Agreed.
You have to earn the third one. And you should be communicating the opportunity that you want pretty early. So people already know ahead of time and say, hey, I'm going to do this. Like, this is what I'm going to do to earn it. But I just want you to know already, this is what I want. This is my goal. Closed mouths don't get fed. And like, I think that's a helpful way, because then when people are like, I don't understand what I'm looking for, it's like, all right, you're at the bottom of the board. Like, I'm not really looking to replicate that success in the management level if you're not performing yourself. Like, how are you going to lead these people? Yeah, it's been helpful.
All right, my next thing that I want to show you guys is from Corporate Bro.
Things that salespeople love to do, I certainly love to do, is bitch and complain about everything.
Everything.
And what are some of the things that you found that you're just like, God damn it, this sucks. I wish it was not here.
I think one of the things that is very tough for me to grasp is the fact that I cannot, if I have a question, I cannot tap on somebody's shoulder, one floor ahead of me or above me or below me just to get the answer. Sales ops.
Yeah.
That is a big thing that kind of slows down the whole process for a lot of us salesmen and women. Half the time they're on the other side of the country, or sometimes they're on this side of the world, and they're at a different time zone. So it's like, look, I need this approved and sent over the fence in the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It may not happen for the next 2, 3, 4 hours.
Time kills deals, people.
Yes. Having to
sales ops.
log a ticket and get that response in the form of an email a couple hours later.
Yep.
And by the time you get the email, it's like, shit, what were we talking about again?
I just noticed that he is in his socks in this interview. Just wanted to point that out. Didn't notice that the first time.
It's very on brand.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, like, I think with a lot of companies, a lot of people, especially working at like a SaaS startup or a startup in general, I've seen it happen 100% of the time. As things scale, the sales team, if things are going right, will scale to plan, but will overperform at the plan. And then it's like, oh shit, we don't have the installers for this. We don't have the onboarding. We don't have enough legal resources for the amount that we're performing. We know this percent of deals is probably going to have to go to legal, red lines or whatever, and we did not scale everything at the same rate that we scaled the sales team. And then it results in a pretty rough customer experience on the ones that you sell, maybe when things aren't, you didn't build out the onboarding piece with the same amount of heads as you just grew your sales team, or deals, time kills deals. We don't have the legal resources. We don't have the ops resources to get an answer fast enough. And they're looking at 2 other things and they want to buy tomorrow. You lost the deal probably to a company that maybe was either scaled higher or isn't scaled yet, so they could dedicate the resource to it and were able to get it back faster. Yeah, it's tough.
What do you do in that situation? Like, do you just, I feel like I would just bitch and complain, but I feel like,
I mean, it's controllables versus uncontrollables, right? It's not in your control to add that resource on the sales side. So bitching and complaining is only going to lower your own attitude and take more time out of your day.
Yeah.
And give you a new excuse to make as to why you didn't hit target.
Patrick, what do you do when there's an internal barrier like ops or legal or something getting in the way of closing a deal?
I follow up with every single person over and over until somebody fixes it. I know so many people in so many departments where I'm like, there's got to be someone that can fucking fix this. If this one person's not responding to me, what is their colleague doing, or their boss, or somebody that reports to them, or someone in another department that I've talked to that might have expertise in this? Can I do it myself somehow? Can I like get around admin somehow, or like find someone's old account? Like, there's always a way to fix it. You just got to keep going.
Like
just the etiquette of how you go to fix it. If you're hitting somebody up 1,000,000 times, like a lot of exclamation points on the Slack. Hey, so-and-so, I know you're super busy, but this deal has this deadline. Is there anything that I can do to help you get this across the line? Where it's not like, I mean, anyone that's not in a sales capacity, like, they have less incentive to probably get that deal in. So you have to kind of sell them on it. If they don't like you, then sadly, that deal might take an extra half a day. So if you're going to have to hit them up a bunch of times, it's like, how are you doing that? Are you putting yourself in a position where they want to help you?
Yeah.
It's abrasive. And if it's on Slack, that means exclamation points, because then they don't know, they can't tell whether or not you're mad, you know. So you don't want to come off like you're angry or disrespectful. Like, you're going to have to get more deals from them than this one. You got to keep those relationships, like, you invest in them, you know, just make sure that when it's coming across, you understand that the reason why they're not getting it in is because they have 15 other things to do. All right, well, if that's the case, then what am I in control of? I'm in control of them liking and wanting to get mine in first.
The last thing that I had on the table was I wanted to pitch you guys an idea, and see what you think and see how I can maybe make it better. Or if this, you can tell me if this is like a complete waste of time, which is this show is all about experimental outreach methods and finding out creative ways to break through the noise, get somebody's attention. Would it be of value? And maybe this is something more that the ABM team is doing, but if I were to partner with, let's say, Jed or somebody else, and come up with really creative ways to reach out to outbound prospects, like leveraging more video, leveraging more humor, really thinking outside the box, is that, and then like kind of, again, experimenting and then figuring out the results of that experiment as part of both of interest for people that listen to this podcast and internally here for PandaDoc.
I think so. I think a big piece of that would be helpful to other people also is like showing how you're experimenting it. That's one thing I learned here that I did not have in my bag at all before I got into PandaDoc was like A/B experimenting, and testing something in like kind of a controlled environment against something else and measuring the results in kind of like a formal way where you even have like a document and spreadsheet to go over it. I think that's helpful. I think it's just some of that is good, and too much of it can do the opposite effect for you, right? Because that is one thing I do think when it comes to like creative approach, especially let's just like on email, I 100% agree with it. Like you need to cut through on email and on like LinkedIn, but on the phone, like I think people make a big deal of like creative approach. Like here's an idea for creative approach: sound more confident, because no one else does, right? Because sales, everyone's saying it, right? Like, hey, we're in the era now where sales isn't just salespeople. Now we can bring in all these science nerds that are going to handle it too, and they got all these great ideas. And it's like, all right, cool. How do you separate yourself? You know that you've got a whole bunch of science nerds calling. Sound like a confident human being on the phone. Sound engaging. Don't sound like you're reading a script. Sound like you belong. That's a fresh approach right now. It's going away. Like that, the fresh one is don't change it. Like your script is fine. The script isn't the problem. You're not saying it right. You didn't memorize it yet. Do you know it front and back? Can you say it without reading it? All right, did you work on the tone? Did you work on your icebreaker? Did you build a little bit of rapport? Do you sound like you actually should talk to this person? And the answer almost always is like, nah. All right, are you assuming the sale? Are you going for an option close at the end of it? No, I'm not really doing that. All right, and you're stressed out about what sentence to say? Just say it better. Like that is the fresh take, is like, it's not a science project. It's actually just get better. Like just be more engaging. Like people that can't focus on the strategy, people that can focus on executing. Strategy don't even matter. If you're executing better than everybody else, then you win anyways. You know, like that's what I try to do. But again, that's on the phone. On the email side, I 1,000% agree. It's like the creative email wins. I know, because when I get them, the more creative it is, the more likely I am to respond to it, where I'm almost like, I have a sentence on it and I'm like, oh shit, they almost got me. I almost replied to this when I didn't want to do a demo right now. I'm too busy, but like they were close that time. That was real close. I think on the phone though, like a lot of it is like, everyone's like, yeah, I just want to change. It's like, you're just resetting your law of averages. You're playing basketball and you're shooting with your right hand the whole time. And then it's like, man, I'm not quite getting the baskets that I want. Maybe I should switch to just my left hand without a guiding hand at all. Let's see how this works for a while. All right, cool. Now let's granny shot it for a little bit. Let's see how that works for a while. Like it doesn't work. Like it resets your law of averages every time, instead of like, oh, maybe I'll just get better at doing this. Maybe I'll just work on that tirelessly until it's perfect. instead of switching it up. Every time you switch, then you reset everything. You got to start over again.
For the record, Patrick only does granny shots in basketball, and I've seen that.
Well, they're the most accurate.
Never
do it. They don't do it because
You've never seen me shoot.
Hands down,
I mean, it's true, but
yeah, granny shot free throws are actually the most accurate, and that's like a fact. People don't do it because it's not cool. Go ahead and Google that. It's a fact. They're more accurate. It just doesn't look cool to do. Like,
yeah, and I want to give my take on this too, because oftentimes reps will come to you and they'll just be like, "Hey, Patrick, like, nothing works. I keep talking to people. People don't want to talk to me. Like, I keep giving my pitch. Nothing's happening. And like, how can I do this better? Like, what's a good strategy?" I'm like, first of all, like Troy said, fuck strategy right now. Like, the fact that you think nobody wants to talk to you is probably the problem.
Yeah.
Like, almost everybody forgets mindset. It's kind of a buzzword to talk about mindset, but it is really important in sales, because like, if salespeople are the athletes of the business world, then like your mind is your muscle, right? And I've had that happen where I've gone into like negative streaks in my brain and thought like nobody wants to fucking buy what I have to sell. And then I end up doing way worse because people can hear that in my voice. When they talk to me, they're like, this guy doesn't want to be here. Why the hell would you buy something from somebody that doesn't want to be there or sell their product or talk to you? Like, and it comes out way more than people think. The number one thing I'll do is like, give me your last 5 calls. Let's listen to them together. Like, let's just like listen to how you sound. And 100% of the time you listen to it and they're like, "Hey, it's John from PandaDoc. What's up?" And they just like sound like they want to die.
yeah.
And you're just like, okay, that's the issue.
You know what? I actually think I have a clip that I can show that exemplifies this exact point that you might be familiar with, Patrick.
Hey, Patrick, this is Morty Smith. And I was just calling to see if there's any chance that you had 7.5 minutes this week for us to chat about a revolutionary new sales product that'll transform how you're prospecting and getting your leads. If there's any possibility for us to have a quick demo, I really think this could transform your business. So thanks again, man, and looking forward to chatting.
I'd say that's pretty accurate for, how I sound when I'm trying to sell.
I was going to say, how'd you get that clip of me 2 years ago?
I think when it comes to like reps that are struggling, it is like, if they sound super unconfident, like it's just, they need to know sales. I've heard it 2 different ways, and then I flipped it on them, similar to Busta Rhymes. The first one is sales is a transference of emotion. That's the first one that I ever heard. So like what your emotion is when you get on the phone with somebody, you're transferring over to them. Then I heard, I think Jordan Belfort says it's a transference of certainty. So like, if you don't sound certain that they should buy or that they should listen to you, then they're not going to. Like, I think it's more, sales is a transference of everything. Whatever the fuck's going on, like if you're having a bad day and you can't reset your attitude, you're transferring that to somebody, like subconsciously, like just through your tone, so you gotta, the first sale that has to occur in your day is selling yourself. And I think it was abrasive to people because it's how I did it, and it doesn't work for everyone, but I used to run meetings and be like, guys, when I was on the phone, no one can lace my boots, not even close. It's not even remotely close. I'm the best at it, hands down. There's no way there's anyone that could do anywhere close to me. I haven't picked the phone up yet. I'm going to book 3 meetings. It's just a matter of who's lucky enough to say yes and get to talk to me today. Like, and that comes off, I guess, externally in a meeting, kind of abrasive. But to me, like, that's how I psyched myself up, was like, I'm the fucking man. Like, I'm about to get in here and whip ass. Like, I knew that coming off that way to prospects isn't going to result in a deal, but that's the confidence that I had in my head to go through the day. And I knew that to get that, then I had to sound kind of confident, but not wildly overconfident or, like a douche or anything like that. But like in my mind, I just knew I was getting the deals. I knew I was going to. I knew there was no one better at it. And even if I was wrong, I had convinced myself of that. And that enabled me to have better tone and probably get better than I should have been just because I was kind of faking it, but I wasn't faking it in my head. Like I believed the shit. I just, I had sold myself on it.
I find that so fascinating, Troy, because I did the exact same thing, but in such a different context in my life, which was test taking in college. I didn't have a lot of confidence, in high school, but then in college, I was like, I would do that exact same psych up, like word for word of how you just did that, of just like sitting in there. And again, if anybody heard the thoughts in my head, they'd be like, this guy's a douche. Because I'm like, I'm the smartest motherfucker in here. There's nobody that can elaborate on these, questions as well as I can. And it just was it's awesome psych up too. And I believed it. And I just started to see my grades take off and like excel so much more.
It definitely works. In the UFC, this lady Thug Rose was up against, this is recent, it's like 3 weeks ago. I forget her name. She's a champion from China and was like unquestionably the most dominant force that there ever was in the weight class, just kicking the shit out of every chick that would go into the octagon with her. And you can hear at the beginning, Thug Rose is like, I think it's like her trainer, like, I'm the best in the world. I'm the best in the world. Like, no, you're actually not. She is the one that I think already whipped your ass, but definitely whipped the ass of the person that whipped your ass and a bunch of other people. She has the belt. She's actually the best in the world. But she had it in her head, like, I'm the best. And she knocked her out with a head kick and beat her and got the belt. And it's like, it's mindset. And it's like, I think like there is some of that, like, well, you need to be humble, right? Like you hear it a lot with startups. Like, we have a culture. There's no place for confidence here, or there's no place for being overconfident, cocky. Like you have to be humble. We want you to be humble. And it's like, all right, cool. You're going to tell these reps at some point that their target is twice as high as it was the year before.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with a humble person when you tell them, hey, can you do twice as much as you did the year before? I don't know. No, sales is, like Patrick said, it's a professional sport. Jordan wanted the ball 100% of the time. Kobe wanted the ball 100% of the time. LeBron wants the ball 100% of the time. He might pass it sometimes, but he wanted the ball to start with at least so he could dictate what he was going to do with it. Like, I want those people. I'd rather start with them almost being cocky and then being able to temper it a little bit and sell them a little bit than the opposite, where they come in wildly humble. It's to me, it's just a shame, where it's like, no, this old stuff doesn't work anymore. And it's like, no, y'all just hired a bunch of people that can't do it. So now it doesn't work anymore. It still works. Stuff still works. Shit don't change. Quote Mac from Always Sunny, Christmas episode. Shit don't change. Robbie the robot, 20 years ago, now it's this new robot. It's all the same toys.
I want to be mindful of everybody's time here. Patty D, Troy. Troy, do you have a cool nickname?
None that I put out there.
Cool.
Troy. Yeah.
He's like, we're not gonna talk about those.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a delicious and nutritious episode of the Customer Engagement Lab. Thank you, Troy. Where can people find you, and what can we help promote on your end?
Where can they find me?
Unless you don't want to be found.
Just search me up on LinkedIn. I started posting video content and then was like, oh, wife's pregnant, got to move, got to do a bunch of stuff. So I collected excuses on that pretty quick. That worked out well. But I am going to really make an effort to get back into that and kind of just posting like, long-winded BS like we just did for a while.
I went down to your LinkedIn and I saw one of those videos like recently, because it was like one of the highlighted ones. And I was like, I miss Troy yelling at me on the camera. I miss that. And I saw like 150 engagements with your video. And I was like, this guy needs to get back into it.
Yeah, I 100% do. Like, it's time for sure. So yeah, just Troy Barter on LinkedIn, search me up and add me, because I'm always out of requests. So that would be actually real helpful. Appreciate that.
Yeah, right, make sure you watch the one about yelling about like building a house. That was my favorite one. It made me like fucking just get up and like do something that day. So if you need some extra motivation, watch the house video.
Awesome.
All right, fellas, appreciate you. Take care.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Adios.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Customer Engagement Lab. For more of Travis and Patrick's chaotic energy, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you would make our hearts smile if you left a super quick rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the show deserves. It'll take you 2 seconds, I promise. Till next time.